usually go about 90 minutes or so with the best Michigan State fans from around the world checking in. We got a lot of Michigan State fans that are subscribing to SpartanMag.com. They come in here to the YouTube channel about every once a week or so, and we field some questions. Questions have been posted over at the Underground Bunker message board, and the way this works is I ask people to post some questions over there, and also here in the chat area we field some questions as well. Some news breaking around East Lansing this week in terms of just interview opportunities with Scotty Hazelton, Michigan State's defensive coordinator, was available on Wednesday afternoon for a teleconference. I think there were 16 of us that were in on that teleconference. A couple of stories live over at SpartanMag.com right now. Had a feature about Hazelton. Also, Paul Konerdijk with a really good story about Jay Johnson and Jay Johnson's outlook on Michigan State's quarterbacks and the team in general. We have more stories coming from those interviews. We'll be trotting those out this weekend coming up. Recording right now, Friday night in East Lansing, March 27th as we record this. This time of year, long shelf life. If we're talking about sports, it's a long shelf life because no games are being played. We appreciate everybody over at SpartanMag.com hanging with us. Traffic's been good over there. I really wasn't sure what would happen with traffic, with everything that's going on in the world, regionally, locally, increasingly locally now. And the numbers have been good, and they actually picked up this week in terms of time spent on the website, page views, and those type of things, which leads me to believe that there are some people out there that want to talk some football, that appreciate a little bit of a diversion. I wasn't sure where that would be when all this started happening, but if you want to talk some football, we are here to do that for sure. Hope all you guys are safe. Hope everybody, guys and girls, are safe and happy and got everything going in the right direction. We're going to talk football. We might get into some of that stuff a little bit, but I think people that are here want to talk some football, and I appreciate all those people chiming in. Also want to remind everybody, if you're new to this thing, go ahead and subscribe to the SpartanMag.com YouTube channel. We appreciate that. Also, if you get a chance, give us a like. We need some likes. The likes are good because it helps promote what's going on here, and it helps put this Michigan State YouTube podcast in front of more people that have clicked on Michigan State things around YouTube. So it helps us branch out and get more viewers, which helps the product here. And also we want to always try to corral people back over to SpartanMag.com so that we can get some more subscribers over there. Also, we appreciate everybody that's been with us thus far. And spring football right now, I'll get to some questions here in a minute about some of the questions that have been posted. But like I posted on the Underground Bunker message board a little bit ago, if at this time of year, it's Friday night, this normally would be the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. At this point, you would have 12 teams remaining in the NCAA tournament, and by the end of tonight, there would be 8 teams. The Elite 8 would be set for Saturday and Sunday. It would have been nice to see how that Michigan State team would have played and how things would have played out this year. Izzo thought they had a chance to make some noise. I do too, the way they finished, certainly, and we know that Michigan State has had some great runs in the past. We also know Michigan State has lost in the Sweet 16 once in a while, Elite 8 a few times, 2-3 times. So at this time of year, we like to think that Michigan State would still be playing toward Izzo's 9th Final Four. But there's also a chance they would have been eliminated by now, and that would have hurt, and we'd have been talking about that a little bit. But at this time of year, when you get around March 28th, usually that's the time when college basketball season usually is over. Despite all the Final Fours, usually it comes to an end by now, and that's when we start talking about spring football. All right, so last year with spring football, we had very little access. D'Antonio spoke at the beginning and might have had 1 or 2 other interviews, but last year at this time, they had gone through the coaching changes and the reshuffling of the coaching staff. And we didn't get a chance to talk to a lot of the coaches. Very few of them. Didn't get to watch much practice. So we had a few quotes, a few interviews here and there, but really not a lot to chew on until we got to the spring game, the green-white game. And then we had a lot more. We won't have that this year, obviously. But in terms of interviews, we are actually going to have more this spring, I think, than we did last year. We've already spoken to both coordinators, 30 minutes apiece. Those were lengthy teleconferences. The audio of those teleconferences are available over at SpartanMag.com. And we will have more interviews next week. So when you get to this time of the year anyway, the coaches might talk a little bit about players that are making a move, maybe a little bit. They used to be pretty guarded about those things. So We didn't get any of that last year. This year, there's no practice, so we're not going to hear much about players making a move or anything. But Jay Johnson with some interesting initial thoughts about the quarterbacks, Peyton Thorne, Theo Day. He mentioned Rocky Lombardi a little bit, more than a little bit. Paul Konadek had that story at SpartanMag.com yesterday or 2 days ago. So we will check in with some of those assistant coaches, find out a little bit more about their initial impressions of some of the players they are going to be coaching, and we will set a little bit more of the table heading toward the fall of 2020 and the summer. Really, not all that different than last year. Last year they were practicing, but we didn't know what was going on. This year, the coaches got some initial impressions of the players by watching practice film, some game cut-ups, and a little bit with winter conditioning. They have some initial impressions of those guys. We don't know what those initial impressions are. We heard a little bit about the quarterbacks. So although those initial impressions were taking place 3 or 4 weeks ago, they're only going to hit the news cycle here in the next couple of weeks as we get a chance to talk to some of those assistant coaches. Appreciate everybody coming in. I'm going to go ahead and send out a tweet here in a second. SpartanMag.com, part of the Rivals.com family. Go over there and subscribe to SpartanMag.com if you've been there before, or maybe you're a former subscriber, want to get back in. We are having it's good community time over there. Great online community, SpartanMag.com. I'll check a question here in a second. Let's kick it off with the first question from the mailbag part of the message board. Let's see. Ohio Spartan from Bellefontaine, Ohio says, great job by Corey Robinson with all of the football updates. No question about that. Corey Robinson doing a great job covering recruiting, all the football recruiting offers that are going out for Michigan State right now. And there are a lot of them. Michigan State more active with offers right now with Mel Tucker than was the case with D'Antonio. I'm not saying that things were wrong the way D'Antonio did it. But the last 2 years, Michigan State was more guarded with those offers than ever before. We talked about that last week. That Michigan State was slower, especially in the Detroit area last year. Went over that last week. But Ohio Spartan says, it sure seems like there's a new approach to making early offers. Can you speak to that and what you see as some of the differences from the old staff? All right, that I guess I was already starting to get into that a little bit. Certainly, I think we lost audio for a second. I think we're back. Certainly, yeah, a different mindset, different approach. I've described it last week, and I'll continue to describe it this way, that D'Antonio recruited from the back a little bit. He had his coaches up front, and they did a lot of the initial recruiting, and he kind of recruited from the back. Mel Tucker's going to recruit from the front. It's the way Kirby Smart did it. It's the way Saban did it. Of course, those assistant coaches are going to get out there and make contacts as well, but Tucker's going to be out front. And that's kind of the way it is. You get a 46-year-old coach, head coach, in his second year. There's just naturally going to be more energy there. So, and we're seeing that with more scholarship offers. And D'Antonio used to offer scholarships within the 5-hour radius first, and then extend it out. And then if he was going to offer scholarships outside that radius, that usually came later. Now we're seeing with Mel Tucker, they're looking at film all over the country. And if somebody fits what they're looking for, they're sending the offer out, whether they're in Louisiana, Florida, California, Colorado, Texas. They're going out nationally. That doesn't mean they're going to sign guys nationally. They're going to try. And they will have some things to sell. But Michigan State, you're seeing more out-of-region offers early than we used to. And I think Michigan State is going to get a foot in the door with some of those guys. There's not going to be any visits for the foreseeable future. But when it comes time to visit, Michigan State's going to have a shot with some of those guys. We've seen quotes from some Detroit area guys and in-state guys, quite frankly, some of the recruits saying that that they weren't all that excited about Michigan State before, and now they are more excited about Michigan State. We saw that with Rayshawn Benny, an offensive tackle from Oak Park. Josh Hemhold had an article about him at SpartanMag.com, Rivals.com today. And he flat out said that he wasn't all excited about the vibe at Michigan State before. The exact quote is, He came in and visited, I think, for the Ohio State basketball game in early March. And Rayshawn Benny said, I like the new staff. Everybody seemed like they were happy and wanted to be there. He just seemed like he was ready to come and make a difference. Rayshawn Benny, the offensive tackle from Oak Park, saying about Mel Tucker. He said, and Josh Hemholt asked him if it increased his interest in Michigan State. Rayshawn Benny said, most definitely it did. Because before Coach D'Antonio left, I was pretty much writing Michigan State off as a school I had interest in. I didn't like the energy there or the vibe. So that's just one recruit telling it like he saw it. An Oak Park guy. Michigan State, went after an offensive lineman from Oak Park last year and got the runaround a little bit, didn't end up getting that player. Michigan State's had more success with Belleville. Some things change at different locations, but definitely, to go ahead and paraphrase what he was saying, different vibe at Michigan State right now, and some of the returns from some of the recruiting right now is starting to indicate that. Now, chances of getting any commitments right now, I talked to Corey Robinson about that a little bit ago, and we're not necessarily anticipating any Michigan State commitments in the near term. And Corey said if anyone was going to commit, it might be somebody that visited during that Ohio State weekend. And no one else is going to get a chance to visit in the meantime for obvious reasons. One exception, Ethan Boyd, the offensive tackle from East Lansing, because he's an East Lansing guy, maybe he would be one that would pull the trigger at this point. But with no visits going on, it's hard to anticipate that. I know that other programs are getting commitments right now, but those places have had coaches in place for more than 5 weeks. And although there are no visits right now, there are some players out there making some decisions. What I'm interested in, of course, there are many more important things going on in terms of the health situation. But in terms of how it relates to football and Michigan State football, some of the dates you want to keep an eye on. Michigan State had some visits, some camps set for June and I think July. D'Antonio had set a camp under the lights in June. They were going to have night camp. Now that's not going to happen. Well, that wasn't scheduled to happen. As far as the camps go, I think there was going to be one on June 18th. And I'm not sure if there was another one in July or not. I thought I had it written down here, but I do not. If things clear up by June, I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. But the June camps, always important to get guys on campus. Secondly, official visits, summer official visits. It's a key component for Midwestern schools to get Sunbelt guys up here when the sun is out and the campuses are pretty beautiful. Michigan State did some of that last year. I would have imagined that they would have been very aggressive with that this year, but that's going to be on hold also. Of course, we want things to get back to normal for other reasons, but if you're interested in football, if things get back to normal by June, maybe they can salvage a camp, but it's hard to say. I'm not going to make any predictions about that. I'm going to send out a tweet right now to invite more people, and let's take me a second to do that. In the meantime, if you want to go ahead and post some questions, we will get to those. A lot of times we'll sprinkle those in as we go, and then finish up a little more rapid fire with those questions as we go, as the podcast goes. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to tell your friends about SpartanMag.com and tell your enemies too. We want your enemies as well, okay? So Hayden V8 out of Grand Rapids says, was the assistant coach conference call a random thing, or can we expect this weekly, frequently? Also, when will Tucker be holding one? Thanks for all the hard work and great stories this week. That's from Hayden V in Grand Rapids. It was. I don't know if random is the right word. We were informed that the assistant coaches, the coordinators, would be available for a teleconference. We were informed 48 hours ahead of time, like on Monday, that was going to be happening on Wednesday. And, they kind of indicated that there would be more opportunities to interview other assistant coaches, particularly the new ones. So I would imagine that actually it's been scheduled. There will be another chance next Wednesday, and also an opportunity to do something on Monday too. So random. It wasn't a one-time deal. We're going to get more of those, and it's going to be teleconferences, and for obvious reasons. So we'll go piece by piece there and get some interesting cross sections on some of the new coaching staff members. Also, look forward to a chance to talk to Harlan Barnett coming up at some point. And as far as when will Tucker do it, I would imagine Tucker will be holding a teleconference pretty soon. Will he do it after all the other assistant coaches have spoken, or might he come in halfway through and do one? I'm not sure. One thing I like as a media member, and you guys might like as a Michigan State fan, is I like that Mel Tucker wants his assistant coaches to do interviews. That's not the way it was for Kirby Smart at Georgia or Nick Saban at Alabama. Both of those coaches wanted to be the voice of their programs. They did not let assistant coaches do interviews. Mel Tucker's letting assistant coaches do interviews. He feels it's important for their professional development, and get in front of the media to do some things. I think that stuff is I think it's good, and it certainly helps us. So let's. All right, MSU Polo. He always has difficult questions. Let's see. He says he has a basketball question and a football question. All right, number one. Assuming you could handpick the best possible fit for Michigan State basketball next year among the known point guard options, Kareem Mane, Carlik Jones, Bryce Aiken, and Amari Hardy, whom would you choose? All right, so Michigan State. If you've been following Michigan State basketball over at the Final Four message board, there are some players that are out there that have shown interest in Michigan State, and Michigan State has reciprocated with, I think, almost all of them at this point. And there are strong indications from Izzo and others on the staff that Michigan State is interested in bringing in a guard for next year, a graduate transfer, an immediate eligibility type of guy. Mane is the point guard, 5-star point guard from Montreal. Izzo has been up there to watch him at least twice. Can't do any off-campus recruiting now, of course, but Izzo really liked what he saw in him. 6'4.5", athletic guy. Marquette, he has already visited. Maryland, he has visited. I said here a week and a half ago, or I think on the Skull Session podcast, that I thought Michigan State's chances with Mane had decreased significantly. Well, I'm going to reverse that a little bit. I'm not going as far as to say Michigan State's the favorite as some of the rumors that are out there, but I think Michigan State still has a foot in the door because Mane told Eric Bossi from Rivals.com that that he wants to wait longer to see what happens to get a chance to do some visits. I expected Mane to make his decision late March into April, and with that being the case, there's not going to be a chance to get any visits at that time. Maybe he will extend it longer. In order for Michigan State to get a real chance for him, he must extend it longer. And when will visits take place? In the foreseeable future? May? June? Wow, I don't know. I mean, the NCAA is not allowing any visits right now. The Big Ten just sent out a mandate saying that they will they'll take another look at things May 5th, but all operations are stalled for all sports right now. So the chances of allowing an on-campus visit before May 15th, I think, are kind of slim. And the chances of getting him without a visit, I still think, are not great. But he is interested in looking at Michigan State. And there were some indications that he was looking to make a visit after that Ohio State game. But I don't know how they could have made a visit when the NCAA tournament is going on. I know that when Terry, the point guard from Flint, he committed during the NCAA tournament. Shortly after that Aaron Henry thing, as a matter of fact. Came in on a Wednesday, watched practice. His mom was on campus, and he committed. Can't have much of a visit on a Wednesday, obviously, if the NCAA tournament is going on. So I still think the timing and the logistics are going to be difficult for Mane, but he's a plus athlete. And I talked to Paul Konendijk about this, and Konendijk typed up some of his notes about each of these. And he's watched these guys and researched these guys more than I have. I've not watched any film on them yet. Not much anyway. But, you know, Konadike likes Mane's ability to play defense at 6'4.5", 6'5". He's a slasher, a plus athlete, Konadike says. So you can get a visual that he's not quite like other point guards Michigan State has had in the past. Eric Bossi compares him to former Kansas star Wayne Selden. Streaky shooter, gets to the rim real well, but not a Cassius Winston type of point guard. But Izzo has won with different types of point guards. Izzo likes this guy, different type of guy. There has been some talk that he might want to go straight to the NBA. He will be turning 20 in the month of May. He's in grade 13 right now in Canada, and those guys are draft eligible. He's still looking into that. The fact that he's interested in that now, if he comes to Michigan State and does well, how long are you going to have him? Or how long might he want to? It's some of that situation with guys have their eyes on the pros that early. In some regards, that's what Izzo wants, but he would have, like any freshman point guard, would have a steep learning curve, and then is he going to pull a Lorbeck on you? I don't know. Carlik Jones from Radford, Cincinnati kid, Big South Player of the Year, 21.5 points per game. Confirmed that, you know, Michigan State is one of the schools that he is showing interest in, and vice versa. This guy's got a lot to offer. Mature kid, 40% from three-point range. I know that's in the Big South, but still, can shoot it. You know, Konadike has the stats for me here. 21.5 points per game, 5.1 rebounds per game, 5.5 assists per game. You're talking about a guy that's averaging 25, 5, and 5. Again, in the Big South, but still, I mean, we saw what happened when Brandon Wood transferred in from Valparaiso, ended up having a really good impact as a senior, ended up starting in the NCAA tournament, the Big Ten tournament championship team. Started once, I think, Brandon Dawson was hurt, even though they didn't quite play the same positions. You know, Bryn Forbes, when he came in from Cleveland State, Cleveland State and Radford, similar levels. Izzo did a great job with Bryn Forbes. I mean, Bryn Forbes was a great shooter, hard worker. Izzo made him tougher, made him get in that weight room. Carlton Valentine had a lot to do with it also. Helped to take that pro potential and turn him into a pro. And Bryn Forbes, good guy. I'm happy for what he's doing. But Carlik Jones, what he's doing at Radford, hey, if Brandon Wood and Bryn Forbes could do it, how about this kid? Against Northwestern, he had 20 points and 7 assists for Radford. And against Mississippi State, Carlik Jones had 15 points and 7 assists. So he's been on the court with some major conference competition, been solid. Bryce Aiken from Harvard. Now, Konadike points out that Aiken has had a history of injuries. Had an ankle injury earlier in his career, and this past year missed a good portion of his senior year, or a portion of it, with a foot injury. He was, Konadike's got a really interesting stat here on the kid from Harvard. It said he's only played 39 games in the last 3 years. As a passer, we're not seeing I'm not seeing him play, but statistically doesn't really ring all that true as a passer. Was averaging only 1.7 assists per game when he went down with the foot injury. And Konadike reports that Bryce Aiken has not had a single season in which he has averaged 3 assists per game. Now, maybe they really wanted him to gun for Harvard. Maybe they didn't want him to pass the ball as much. I don't know. But in terms of, and he tweeted out when other schools were interested in him that he was interested in Michigan State after seeing what Cassius Winston did. He was interested in Michigan State. And then Michigan State reciprocated, and there's been some contact there. But in terms of being a pass-first guard, might not quite be his deal. Now, Amari Hardy, a Detroiter who plays at UNLV, 6'2", 190, went to high school at North Farmington. This year at UNLV, he averaged 14.5 points per game, shot 33% from three-point range, and averaged about 3 assists per game. Hardy, 6'2", 190. He would have, I think, 2 years of eligibility. With him coming back to Detroit, Could they get him some immediate eligibility? I'm not sure if he's already graduated. Maybe some of you can point that out. Maybe that's the case. I don't know if he's a candidate for immediate eligibility. I assume that he is. I don't know all the particulars on that. He would be an interesting one, a solid one. Also, Conan Dyke seems to like the Carleague Jones guy as a fit right now among all those. So I'm going to defer to Paul. I've not watched any of the video. Conan Dyke's got a great eye for these type of things. So I would go ahead and endorse what Conan Dyke says. So Polo, if you're asking me which one I would choose, I'll go with the Conan Dyke endorsement. I think the kid from Radford is really interesting right now. All right, Polo also asks, what do you think is the most important position for the football staff to recruit hard for the 2021 class? Most important position. Every year you got to get D-line, 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 D-line. Every year, right? Sometimes you don't have enough scholarship slots to go heavy in the D-line every year. Defensive tackles, they're going to be needing some. They've got Naquan Jones as a senior, Slade, and you've got Hunt coming in. After that, they signed some guys, but always it starts with D-line. Well, I mean, quarterback and all that stuff too. But if you really want to compete for championships, D-line, always important. He also says he's got 3 questions. MSU Paulo from Rockford, Michigan. Yes, I'll give you 3 questions here. I'll give you 3 questions. He says, what is your go-to adult pop of choice? I know you're a coffee tea guy. Actually, I don't drink coffee anymore or tea. I decided to quit. It was just kind of starting to tickle me wrong. You know what I mean? All right, he says, but wasn't sure if you're a beer, wine, or liquor guy. When I was younger, maybe, but I'm high maintenance. I'm gluten free, so that takes a few of those choices out of there. I've had some interest in wine over the years, but Tanqueray and tonic is usually the thing. But Malbecs, can't beat a good meat sauce marinara with Chianti, right? Of course, pasta's a problem these days for reasons I just mentioned. But anyway, thanks for asking about that. I don't want to bore anybody on that, but thanks for the question. Let's see. James from Roswell, Georgia, originally from the mean streets of Livonia, Michigan. He says, who has a better year next year, Naylor or Reed? Do you think they will be on the field together often or rotate at the slot receiver? I think they're both going to be on the field. I think Naylor's going to be able to play multiple positions, not just the slot. Jaden Reed, the transfer from Western Michigan, I've not seen him, but I mean, his teammates rave about him. So you've got a couple talented guys. They're going to be on the field at the same time and not just the slot. I'll be interested to see if one of them is more proficient at the slot than the other. But yeah, they're going to be on the field together. Sorry about that. I had to check something out. All right, Mall 286 chiming in. Locked down, South Philadelphia. Be safe there, locking down. And stay in. He says, I love the coverage of the Coach teleconference. I have 2 questions. 1, based on a 4-3 base, multiple approach on defense, who are your starters on defense pre-fall camp? Starters, want to go through the all 11? All 11, huh? Well, let me get a little cheat sheet here and take a look. Jacob Panashuk's going to be starting. Got off on a little bit of thin ice there with the coaches, but it's all good now. He'll be out there. He'll be starting. This is provided everybody stays healthy and so forth. Jacob Slade, Naquan Jones, they've gotten on the field. The Hunt kid, though. Hunt, let's see. I mean, he almost got on the field. Jay Hunt, the kid that was originally committed to Iowa, ended up at Michigan State. He's going to be in there, and he might even overtake Slade. That's going to be a competition. They're both capable. So Hunt could get in there a little bit. But Slade's ready to play right now. I don't know if he's a plus player like the guys that just graduated, but he played a lot every game. He'll just be a year older. By the way, Slade and his brother were 2-star recruits. I saw them at a camp in Ohio prior to their senior year, and those guys were just dominating. I was like, who are these guys? I went and talked to them. They had very little scholarship interest, very little interest in general. But Michigan State was interested in them. One of them had been to the Michigan, or both. They'd both been to Michigan State's camp the year before that. I was not aware of that. I did not see them at that camp, but saw them in Ohio, and they were excellent. We started writing about them at Spartan Magazine, SpartanMag.com, at the bottom of the notebooks. I'm like, I have not detected any interest from Michigan State in these guys, but these guys were excellent. Went back, looked at the film. They were excellent. Just put them in there, just a throw in at the bottom of the notebook. A month or two later, Michigan State had already or started getting on them again. But at that time, the Slade brothers said they hadn't heard from Michigan State. So it started happening more after that. And I don't know if the Slades, if what they did at the T-shirt camp, like the Rivals camp, encouraged Michigan State to reach out to those guys and bring them back into Michigan State's camp for another look. I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. But SpartanMag.com, we were writing about those guys before Michigan State started getting interested in them. Hopefully we'll have a chance to look at some T-shirt camps again this spring and maybe find some others. We'll have to see. But Slade, I think, starts as a sophomore this fall. Jack Camper, if he can stay healthy, I think is a starter at the other defensive end. Brent Mossberg has done Drew Beasley has done a little bit of he started once or twice due to injury in his career. He's capable. He'll be okay. But I think if Jack Camper is healthy, I think Camper has a higher ceiling of potential. But that's how I think starting up front right now. At the linebacker position, I think you'll have Noah Harvey and Antoine Simmons starting. Now, the other starters are either going to be Jess Lord Boateng or Chase Klein. So if Boateng starts, Boateng's in the slot, and that'll mean Simmons is inside. If Klein starts, then Klein is inside, and Simmons goes to the slot. That's my guess based on the way Michigan State played football last year. I've been hearing that the way Michigan State's coaches penciled in the starting 11 for the beginning of spring practice, a beginning which never took place. But, of course, when you are getting ready to start spring practice, you're going to pencil in a starting 11 and a second 11, just so you have a group from which to begin your drills. You're going to have some ones, you're going to have some twos. From what I've heard, there was some jumbling going on. From what I heard, some of the jumbling was going to make for a faster defense. And my source didn't give me any more particulars than that. So I'm going by last year's construct a little bit. Last year, Mike Tressel was a linebackers coach. Now he's the safeties coach. Ross Ells is the new linebackers coach. He might have a completely different outlook on things. But I am anticipating a 4-3. Hazelton kind of indicated as much during the teleconference on Wednesday. I asked him that question. Hazelton at Kansas State ran a 4-3. Mel Tucker at Colorado last year with last year's defensive coordinator was mostly a 3-4, but they would swing it to a 4-3 sometimes. Mel Tucker has told us in the past that he is not married to either one. He's done both, 3-4 and a 4-3. He's done both at different stops. At Alabama, they had both probably equally when he was there, and I think that was 2015. Yeah, they were doing more 30 at that time, but as they were morphing from 4-3 to 3-4, there was a point at which they were doing about 50-50. Like I said, Tucker is not married to just saying, hey, I'm a 3-4 guy and making this defense and this roster do a 3-4. He's not that way. Hazelton's been a 4-3 guy. Hazelton said on Wednesday the same thing that we said here last week, and that is that this roster has been recruited for a 4-3 defense, a 4-3 scheme, 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers, rather than 5 technique type of defensive ends. It's been recruited to a 4-3. He's a 4-3 guy. That's the direction, by all indications, that they're heading. So if they're going to stay with a 4-3, 3 linebackers, 2 inside backers, and probably 1 in the slot, probably not all that different from last year, although there will be some I'm sure there will be some other differences with the new scheme and so forth. But I still think until I hear otherwise, I think it's 2 inside backers in a slot And most coaches want to get their best three linebackers on the field. Their best three linebackers on the field. Simmons's versatility allows him to do either or. He can play inside at a Mike linebacker or a Sam linebacker or in the slot. So depending on who the other two is, I'm thinking that's where Antoine Simmons winds up. And Simmons is really becoming a leader for next year. He's being appealed to and asked his opinion on a lot of things. And I think we will hear from him pretty soon, possibly some interviews coming up. So I think if you want a faster team, maybe Boateng at the slot, Simmons inside. But last year, when Joe Bocci became ineligible, Antoine Simmons moved from the slot to middle linebacker for a game or two. And then the coaches moved him back to the slot because they just felt that they couldn't do without his speed. They needed his speed. Specifically, he was inside against Michigan, and Michigan really attacked the slot area, the field area, and Michigan State wanted to get Simmons' speed back out there. In the defensive backfield, Xavier Henderson's going to start at safety, I would imagine. Shaq Brown probably going to start at corner, had some starting experience last year at corner. Hazleton mentioned him in passing in the teleconference on Wednesday. So Shaq Brown has had some moments. He's a young guy, so he's got 2 more years to go. You'd expect him to even things out and become a steadier player. Difference is Shaq Brown's now going to be coached by Harlan Barnett. So Shaq Brown will get the best chance possible, in my opinion, to get coached up by... is there going to be a better cornerbacks coach in the country than Harlan Barnett? Probably not. And Barnett recruited Shaq Brown way back when he was in high school when Barnett was here before. It's going to be interesting to talk to those defensive backs and hear what some of them have to say, because a lot of them came to Michigan State expecting Harlan Barnett to be here, including Xavier Henderson. I did hear that Barnett's initial meeting in the defensive backs room back in, I don't know when would that have been, first week of February, second week of February, I heard that it went really well. A lot of excitement. So Xavier Henderson, Shaq Brown. The other corner, Kalen Gervin's going to be around there. The other safety, Trey Person's going to be around in there. They would get the first crack at it. You've got Chris Jackson around. You got Davion Williams. Julian Barnett's getting some look over there. He played wide receiver this year. So there's going to be some competition there whenever they get back on the field. Let's go to the chat area for some questions. Rob South checking in and saying, "What's up, fellas?" Good to see Rob South. John G checking in from Mason, Michigan. Martian Mambo on the board. Good to see you, John G. Tom Coyle from Palatine, Illinois says hello. Tyrone Garland, using his wife's YouTube, says, "What's up, comp? Love the live chats. Keep them coming. Great to hear from you, Tyrone Garland. A legit Spartan dog, a guy that actually wore the uniform in this era, from New Jersey originally." It's good to hear from you, Tyrone Garland. Thanks for coming in. And Tyrone, you make sure to let me know when I get something wrong. I depend on you guys, the guys that wore the helmets, to let me know when I get something wrong. Old Tuck says, "Just on the way home from fishing in Lake Travis." So Old Tuck, you got to tell us. I imagine you're going largemouth bass. Is that what it is at Lake Travis? Topwater plugs, or are you using some jerk baits in a boat or from the shore? You got to give me some details. Paul Marsh says, "Good evening, folks. Stir crazy here in Rockford, Illinois." You got to be more specific also. Rockford, Michigan. Old Tuck, flathead catfish, 20-inch largemouth. So there it is. There's information right there. Are you keeping the catfish or are you throwing them back? Old Tuck, Tyrone Garland, player back with Aldi Henry, maybe Thomas Wright too. I don't know about Thomas Wright. Robert Flagg had talent, yes. Tyrone was with Aldi Henry. Marvin Wright is what you're thinking about, Old Tuck. And Reggie Garnett and that crew. No questions, just some guys checking in there. If you have some questions, go ahead and chime in. We'll go back to the message board. Might be a quick night tonight. Let's go back to Mall 286 from South Philadelphia with his second question. He says, on offense, we want to run the ball with force. Would you like to see Who would you like to see start for game one on the offensive line? Man, he wants me to go over I just went over the 11 on offense or on defense. Who would I like to see on the offensive line? I tried to ask a question to get a little more information on Cole Chewins from Jay Johnson on Wednesday, but wasn't quite able to pry that question in there. I think A.J.R. Curry showed enough last year. I think that he'll build on that, and I think he can play left tackle. I think Kevin Jarvis at whichever guard you want. Jordan Reed, is he a right tackle, or might they move him inside? Not sure. At center, do you like Nick Samac or Matt Allen? I'll go with Allen, but Samac has a bright future, played well as a true freshman. The most improvement comes between the freshman year and the sophomore year, right? So Samac, I mean, it's possible he could come back as a sophomore and really take a step. Difference is, there's so many players out there that have gone back home. How are they doing with their workouts on their own? Gosh, that's going to be a big variable for the season coming up. Luke Campbell, came back in, got hurt a little bit again. J.D. Duplain is there. I've been saying this. I need to go back over the Wake Forest game, give it another look, and just see the most recent specimen, the most recent film specimen for each of these guys. Take another look at that. Jarvis hasn't played, since the Arizona State game? 2 straight years he's had a significant injury. Good athlete, rugged guy. I don't know, but my 5, I'll go with our Curry. I don't know. Give me Jordan Reed. He's been solid, functional. Give me Jarvis. The other 2, I'll go with Allen at center, and at guard, it's either Duplain, Campbell, or maybe Samac moving over there. Buter's going to be around. I got a no pref on that one. No pref. Next question from Ward. He's got the same question. Between targets like Kareem Mane, Bryce Aiken-Hardy, Carlik Jones, which do you think the staff wants most, and who do you think we have the best shot at landing? I think a program like Michigan State, if they went after the Carlik Jones guy from Radford, Cincinnati kid, I mean, playing in the Big Ten's got to be exactly what he's been looking for. The Bearcats are after him. Does he really want to go back to his hometown, or does he want to go bigger? Michigan State's bigger. Cassius Winston moving on. Jones, a guy that averaged 5 assists per game, mature. So maybe some of those guys come in and they visit with him, and maybe one of the tiebreakers will come down to personalities. Who does Izzo like as a personality? Who do his players like as a personality? That could figure into this when we get back to the chance to have some visits. I'm thinking Hardy and Jones. One's a Detroiter, one's from Cincinnati. Just a suspicion those 2 are more realistic right now. I'm just guessing, just a hunch. No inside information. I'll try to get some inside information before the next one of these, but right now with no inside information, I'm thinking the Cincinnati kid and the Detroit kid. Just a guess. Now this is Beaumont from Beaumont. Beaumont, Texas? Or Beaumont Tower? Are you over there at the tower just hanging out, collecting cans? His name's Beaumont. He says, we're now a few months into the Mel Tucker era. A few months? I think it's a few weeks. I think it's 5 weeks. He says, and many of us have had a chance to meet with him and talk with him. What are your first impressions of the man, the myth, and the legend? My first impressions? He's got a presence to him. And it didn't, like the initial press conference over there at Breslin, a lot of people thought that it was just kind of slower paced and so forth. I was sitting near the front, and he paused a few times. And I didn't ask him about this, but it seemed to me he was pausing to get a handle on his emotions. Some people thought that he was just going slow and not used to doing a press conference. No, he was trying to rein in his emotions. That's one thing. But just talking to him off to the side and the media scrums and so forth and watching him interact a little bit. He has a presence to him. He's got a presence to him. Nils Deco, who posts as Amy on the message board, had an interesting comment. He likes Mel Tucker just because Mel Tucker can kick anyone's butt in the Big Ten from a coaching perspective. Can't argue with that. That's part of the presence. So energetic, knows what he wants to do, has a vision on what he wants to do here in the first 2 months, 6 months, year, 2 years. Has seen it done before at a high level at various programs. Exceedingly confident that he can put the pieces together, coach them up, turn them loose, recruit, evaluate, close, assemble a roster. And you've seen what he's done being extremely accessible with his outreach on social media. I heard from day one that he wanted to be more high tech in that regard. He saw that Georgia did that, and it really helped with the recruiting. And it didn't take long for Michigan State with Tucker and his coaches to start doing a lot of creative things social media wise. And that's going to catch some eyeballs with some recruits. There's some energy there. There's some optimism there. There's some fun there. So, haven't gotten to know him real well yet, but those are my initial impressions, and they're positive. They're constructive. He's got some professionalism. I mean, resume-wise, I've said it here before 3 or 4 weeks ago. He's 46 years old. Show me anybody in football under the age of 50 with a defensive resume better than Mel Tucker, who's a head coach, maybe even including head coaches. 46 years old. I mean, defensive backs coach, national championship, Ohio State. Defensive backs coach, national championship, Alabama. Nick Saban, Jim Tressel, coached under both of those guys, saw how they did it. Kirby Smart leaves Alabama, goes to Georgia, brings Tucker with him, makes him a coordinator. They came that close to winning a national championship with that outfit. He's real close to having 3 national championships with 3 different coaches. Goes to the NFL, defensive coordinator for 2 different teams. 3 years as defensive coordinator for the Jaguars. I mean, you're a defensive coordinator in the NFL for 2 teams. Interim head coach in the NFL. National championships at the age of 46. Resume-wise, show me a better resume than that. That resume is better than Kirby Smart's was when Kirby Smart became head coach at Georgia. Trust it. Resumes aren't everything, but when you're, it sure is a credible place to start. Credibility. All right. Mile High post, that's his name, Mile High, that's his name over at the SpartanMag.com, Underground Bunker. He's from Golden, Colorado. He says there were a lot of Mane rumors over the week. What are you hearing regarding his recruitment? What's fact versus fiction these days? Is MSU in good shape as rumors suggest? Well, in good shape, there were some rumors that came around like he was ready to commit to Michigan State. That would have really stunned me without a visit. I don't think that's going to happen. I'll be checking in a little bit more to get some more information, to put my ear to the ground a little bit more on the Mane front. Like I said earlier in this podcast, I don't anticipate him committing anywhere before visiting. Well, he's already visited Marquette and Maryland. I wouldn't anticipate him committing to Michigan State without visiting. I just don't see that happening. So when is the visit going to take place? Not anytime in the near future. So I already talked about that earlier. If you're just joining the podcast, you can rewind and find it somewhere else. And give us a like in the meantime. Which football recruits is Michigan State in position with at this point and most likely to be Spartans? Again, the Boudin guy from Belleville's an interesting one. It's hard to say, though, because a lot of it's just getting started. And Michigan State was just getting their foot in the door with some of those guys and restarting connections with them. The Boyd kid from East Lansing is interesting, but in terms of like who is close to pulling a trigger for Michigan State right now. Maybe something will happen overnight. I'm not sure. And I don't mean like overnight, like news is ready to happen. Sometimes commitments happen and they surprise you. But with the given climate, with everything, I don't think they're right there right now. But I've been talking with Corey about that a little bit. He and I are going to have a podcast pretty soon. He's really working hard in a lot of ways right now. So I'd like to end. That's one of the things we'll talk about. There's a lot of visits going out, a lot of scholarship offers going out. A lot of scholarship offers going out. Okay, which ones are really seeming to resonate with these guys? Which of these guys that are fielding scholarship offers now are actually likely to visit again? You know, the quarterback from Texas, he really loved his visit. Corey Robinson talking to him about that just before this started. We didn't really anticipate a commitment from him anytime soon, but Michigan State has those scholarship offers out to those quarterbacks, and sometimes once one commits, then those other guys no longer have a scholarship opportunity. So that can be a situation like who's going to jump first. Quarterback, is that possible? Maybe. He liked his visit. That's for sure. But I don't have a real strong opinion on anybody in terms of Michigan State leading, like on the cusp of getting some of those guys. We will have our ear to the ground on that, and when things change with somebody, we'll be talking about that at SpartanMag.com soon. Callie Spartan from Inkster, Michigan, living in Detroit, says, "What's the guard recruiting situation looking like?" Oh, Callie Spartan, you're the guy that does the beer podcasts with your grandfather, right? If so, make sure to put your link here to your podcast, and we'll link it up here and tell people to go check that out. I've watched a few of them, and I enjoy them. They're good with you and your grandpa reviewing various beers. That's a lot of fun. He says, "What's the guard recruiting situation looking like? A lot of rumors swirling around about Mane being a close lock. Also, what do you think of those bacon wire upstarts?" Bacon wire upstarts. I don't know what that is. We've talked about Mane already. All those rumors. You know, Eric Bossi had the article about Mane a couple days ago, and not close to making a decision. Those rumors were put to bed. But Bossi did indicate that Michigan State is still on his mind a little bit with Mane. Spartan Barry from Shelby Township, Michigan, says, "I felt it was interesting while reading the Benny recruiting article that he had written off Michigan State due to a lack of energy within the program. Jim, did you feel as if the energy level had changed over recent years? You are much closer to the environment, so may have an interesting perspective." You know, I've talked about that here in previous weeks. When D'Antonio was first hired, he sent Dan Enos and Harlan Barnett to visit each Detroit school day one and day two. They visited each Detroit school, every one of them. That's like out of the starter gates, energy, revamped, revived recruiting interest. After 12, 13 years, do they still have that in Detroit? No. We talked about that here. Terry Samuel was a little bit hot and cold with some recruiting. Did some good things in Texas and Georgia here and there. It's been difficult to recruit in Detroit with the Curtis Blackwell situation going on. That's part of it. Suburban Detroit last year is where I thought Michigan State really had the engine was really missing there a little bit. The wheels were spinning, and I mentioned that here. And part of it was because when they changed coaching roles, Brad Salem went from being quarterbacks coach to offensive coordinator. When he was quarterbacks coach, he was responsible for recruiting in suburban Detroit. Once he became offensive coordinator, that put a lot more time on his plate to set up the offense for 2019 and to go around various places, and he went to one or two places to pick some brains here and there. So his recruiting deal in suburban Detroit, I don't know if that was supposed to be handed off to somebody else or he thought someone else was going to handle it. I don't know what happened. And it wasn't just him. It was, other coaches with recruiting too. I'm just using this as one of the examples. Suburban Detroit recruiting fell asleep. The McGregor kid from Port Huron put out his top 10. I asked him last summer, did you hear from Michigan State? Why didn't they make your top 10? He said, man, I didn't hear from them. Initially he was interested, and he just flat out didn't hear from Michigan State. Enzo Jennings, the defensive back who ended up at Penn State, Michigan State offered a scholarship really late, and D'Antonio told him, hey, when we offer a scholarship, we mean it. When you get a scholarship offer as a defensive back, it means something, which was a good narrative to say. When you know you're late, you might as well put it out there that way. And Michigan State got in there a little bit with him, but he was already headed to Penn State. That's just two examples, but if you want to call, Spartan Barry says, do you feel the energy level had changed over the years? Yes. I mean, when you look at those examples, and compare it to what I said about Enos and Barnett day one in 2006, different energy level. Just is. Yes. Michigan State still put together a pretty good recruiting class, salvaged a decent class, went out of state to do a lot of it, went into Ohio to do a lot of it. I think Georgia did a good job in Georgia with Simmons and Ricky White. So not a bad recruiting class, not a hole. It's not going to be a hole in the program. But, they still always want to do well close to home. You want to have some Michiganders on there. Let's go back to the chat area for some questions. Spartan Tune 89 says hello. Spartans Forever says, what's everyone drinking? Spartan Tune 89 says Fireball. Fireball. I know some people that drink Fireball. In Canada. I don't think you're one of them. Tom Coyle says Dewar's White Label. That's certainly more sophisticated than I would be. Let's see. Spartans Forever. Truly here, running out of booze. Truly here, running out of booze. Well, worried about that. Spartan 89 Hicks says, any signs that we might get a commit anytime soon? I'm not seeing that. Sometimes they happen overnight, like I said, but I've not seen any indications of that. Maybe something will happen. I don't know. Jesse Adams from Mount Pleasant. Do you think Dobbs will push for first-team reps? No, I don't. Not unless he shows significant improvement over last fall, which is possible with a true freshman. Had a lot to learn. Got on the field a little bit. They like his athleticism, but really looked like a freshman. Some of the other freshmen didn't look like freshmen. Michigan State's got 9 guys coming back with starting experience. Do I think he'll push for first-team reps, like become a starter? I don't think so, not unless there's injuries. Could he push to get into the rotation? Possibly. Jay Johnson was asked on Wednesday, is he in favor of playing 7, 8 offensive linemen, 9 offensive linemen, as was the case with Mark Staten? And he said he says he's not against it, and if some players are good enough, I can't remember his exact quote, but it doesn't sound like it's something philosophically he sets out to do. Kapilovic, the offensive line coach, I would have to look to see how much they did that at Colorado. They had a very young offensive line last year and did a pretty good job with it. But, I mean, he's going to be inheriting a situation here with 8 or 9 decent offensive linemen, all of which have started at some point. So if they want to go with more reserves, they'll have a chance. But I've not heard either way whether it's something that they want to do. If it's not something that they want to do, then I think Dobbs is going to have a little more time to wait. He says, Jesse Adams also asks, do you think Darius Snow will play at all this upcoming season? Darius Snow, he's lost some weight to get down to more safety weight. When he was a junior at the T-shirt camps, he went from 4-star to 3-star because he didn't quite have that electric safety speed to remain a 4-star, but I thought that he looked more like a slot linebacker. I asked him about that, and he said, no way, I'm not a linebacker. I'm a safety. Vehement about it. And I was like, okay, I still think, I didn't tell him this, but I'm like, I think he's still a slot linebacker. But then he went and lost some weight, and I thought that his senior film looked better. So, um, could he play at safety? I mean, you've got Trey. Do I think he'll play? Special teams, maybe. I'm not real good at that with incoming freshmen. I always have an opinion on those, but that's something that my hit rate on that is not all that great. I did say that I thought Tate Halleck would get on the field as a true freshman. Special teams, that happened. Um, Darius Snow, I don't know. I mean, special teams, would you rather just redshirt some of these guys? I don't know. Trey Person's going to be in there. Xavier Henderson is there. Tate Halleck is going to be around, I assume, as a safety. So the door is open for someone to get into that 2 deep. So he's got a possibility. I'm going to say yes, he gets on the field. The next question is, do I think he plays more than 4 games and burns the red shirt? I don't know. Flip a coin on that one. Mall286 again from South Philadelphia says, who are the top 2 players that you felt Izzo was going to land and MSU lost during the process? Do you mean like in history? Anthony Roberson, who ended up going to Florida. And who was the kid from Muskegon that played in the NBA for the Knicks? He was basically a silent commitment. Someone will post it. It's embarrassing I can't think of his name. I did a search, and the only thing that comes up is Deontay Davis. That's not who I'm talking about, of course. No, he's Benton Harbor, wasn't it? It was Benton Harbor. Sorry, this is boring. Robert Whaley. Wilson Chandler. Robert Whaley comes up. Wow. That's the first one that comes up. Wilson Chandler, excellent player. Excellent player. And Michigan State had a really good chance to get him, and then some funny business happened. And that one ended up getting dislodged. And Wilson Chandler ended up going to what, DePaul? Yeah. I'm sure there's others, but those are the first 2 that come to mind. The 2 that I thought Izzo was going to land. As far as who Izzo thought he was going to land, Izzo thought they had a shot at Vernon Carey. Was Deshaun Sims? Was that the guy that went to Michigan? Was Deshaun Sims? Yeah, Deshaun Sims. From Detroit Pershing. He had pretty much told Alan Anderson he was coming to Michigan State, ended up in Michigan. So those are some of them. All right, Henke from South Lyon. Any outside chance, 1% or greater, that the new staff is looking for a quarterback transfer? That's another thing. If they would have had spring practice and not loved these guys, that would have given them more information as to whether they felt they needed one. Without spring practice, that delays their knowledge of the current recruits or the current quarterbacks. So I would have put it at maybe 17% that they would look for a quarterback transfer. And there's not a lot of great ones out there. I mean, the one from Wake Forest went to Georgia. The kid from Stanford went to Mississippi State, I think. There's not a lot out there that are going to come in truthfully. I mean, you could go out and try to poach somebody from a MAC school or something, but I mean, the chances of getting someone who's actually better than Rocky Lombardi, there's not a lot of them out there. So now without spring practice, I would dial that back from 17% inside of 8%. Jay Johnson, the offensive coordinator, was asked about the quarterbacks on Wednesday, and he said, when talking about Theo Day, he said, when I watch his tape, the ball comes out of his hand well. He says Theo's a big kid. He shows a little bit more athleticism than you might think. I think he's kind of sneaky in that way. The thing I like about Theo is the ball really comes out. So I'm excited to get with him more in person and get on the field and do some things with him. I also asked Jay Johnson about Peyton Thorne.
And he said, I think Peyton has a great skill set. He seems to be very knowledgeable and understands the game. Obviously, with his dad's background, his dad was a great player in college. I also think is very marketable and can do a lot of things. He shows a decent skill set from a movement capability and appears to have enough arm ability to make the throws that we need him to make. I am excited about him, even though I haven't been able to see him do anything physically live. Just off of tape, it looks like he brings a good skill set to the game. I asked him if that meant that he watched him in practice, and he said yes. He watched practice film, Michigan State practice film last year. So these coaches having to dig deep. And I remember when Kevin Wilson was hired as the new coach at Indiana, he said he didn't watch any game tape of the Hoosiers from the year before. Zero. Went into his first spring complete blank slate. I remember thinking, well, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that just seemed kind of strange to me. It seemed unnecessary. These coaches been watching not only game film but practice film from last year because a lot of the guys that they're inheriting didn't get on the field in the games, so they go back and watch practice. M. Barry 35 does not say where he's from. He says, What's one of your favorite Coach D memories? Favorite Coach D memories. I look back to that Cotton Bowl when they beat Baylor and the way he and Narduzzi were really tearing up at the end of that game. I mean, that was an emotional game because Narduzzi was moving on, but also they were playing a team they really wanted to beat. They really did not like the way Baylor behaved themselves on the field. And that game was interesting because it was really a clash of styles. You had Baylor with the beginnings of the RPO. They invented the RPO. And, you know, the up tempo, pushing the envelope with illegal downfield blocking, and all the taunting they were doing. So it's a completely different mindset of football from a behavior standpoint and also X's and O's. Nothing bad about X's and O's. If someone's going to do something different than you, it's always interesting to put it on the field and see what happens. So all those things together. And Baylor was good, really good. And Michigan State's ability to hold it together, come back and win that game, as emotional as they were after that game, that's the first thing that comes to mind. There were other wins that were bigger, but for some reason you asked for what's one of my favorite memories. That would be good. Spefton from East Lansing says, question, we haven't heard much about Sissoko since his commitment. What kind of player are we getting with Sissoko? Will he get immediate playing time even if X returns? If X returns, I wouldn't anticipate Sissoko getting more time than Julius Marble got this year. But Sissoko, quick shot blocker, defense first, scratching the surface, a lot of upside. I've not seen him play this winter. Of course, the season's over now, but I didn't see what he did this winter. So I'll have to look into that a little bit more. A lot of basketball questions today. Most basketball questions we've ever had. Hikos asks, "How's your family holding up? How's the family holding up? Pretty good. It's not been bad so far. Things are supposed to be getting bad in Lansing in terms of the virus stuff in about 9 or 10 days, is what I hear from people in the health industry. So as of now, I'm trying to get everybody to bunker in a little bit. Now, me, I've been working here every day, and sometimes you get interrupted in your work because you got a couple of young teenage kids that I want to get out in the yard and throw the ball around, shoot volleyball, that type of stuff. Um, so I don't get as much work done, but that's okay. Uh, it's been good. My car has not left the driveway in 14 days. We walk around here a lot. In some regards, I know it's really dangerous and scary out there, but in some regards, it's been working okay. Been working okay. I want to do a little bit more of these, and I've got some things I want to do with this a little bit different in the future. Um, I've been working on that from a technical standpoint, so I'm getting some time to work on those things. But we're doing all right. I'm trying to convince everybody else here to just kind of let's not go anywhere. Be like me, but kind of going here and there. It's going okay. Everybody's got a different experience, and I know a lot of the people chiming or tuning in now are all over the country. And my thoughts are with you, and we're going to want your thoughts to be with us also. It's really been interesting. I mean, we're all into it now, but we've all seen those national disaster type situations. I mean, from afar, we've here in Michigan, we've seen hurricanes in various places. We've seen other disasters, and you wonder about those people in those places. This has been one disaster that we're all in the same boat. We all saw it coming, and we're all in the disaster. That's what makes this one so much different than the other ones over the years. And now, increasingly, the people in New York have been going through it a ton, right? Recently, in the last week and a half, Louisiana now. Michigan, the state of Michigan was among the best. You may have seen this in social distancing or not, in remaining hunkered down, 45% drop or something like that, based on how much the cell phones are being moved around. I think that's good. That's the way to do it. I see that it was like zero change in Montana. They haven't changed at all in terms of going around. And Grizz Spartan is one of our subscribers, and Grizz Spartan's probably driving around. At some point, it's going to get to all those places too. But we're all in it together. There's no question about that. Jay Bannon from Sterling Heights says, I've noticed that the staff is making offers to a lot of players in certain areas of the team. They seem to perceive that is an area of need. How do you see the volume of offers for certain positions? I see offensive tackle, tight end, and DBs after a lot of the names of recruits being offered. That's a great observation, Jay Bannon. And you're right. They need tight ends, and Jay Johnson was talking about that. And you watch Colorado play, one tight end on the field at all times, sometimes two. And the tight end is a big part of what they want to do. Jay Johnson described tight ends as being the MVP of the offense. Trying to build up the tight ends that way. I mean, the quarterback's always going to be the most important player of an offense. But tight ends, of course, you got to be physical, got to block, and you're running routes and you're catching the ball. Nobody does more in terms of multi-pronged things, than tight ends. This is not a program that's going to go in a direction outside of the tight end. As a matter of fact, there's as much as D'Antonio placed emphasis on tight ends, these guys I think are going to put even more on it. So Michigan State right now, shortage of tight ends. You have Gillison coming back. You lost Seibert. It's a shortage there. Parks Kissinger, they had to move him from defensive end to tight end. I thought that Michigan State was in position to maybe go get a grad transfer at the tight end position, but I'm not seeing any scuttlebutt about that. But you're right, a lot of tight end recruiting scholarship interest right now. By the way, got the issue of Spartan Magazine here. Mateen Cleaves, Champions Forever. 20 years ago, next month, this came out. Back in 2000, Cleaves on the cover, Herbert Cleaves. Photo taken, Hoosier Dome, Indianapolis. The old Spartan magazine there. That was the old logo, too. Anyway, had that in a frame. My wife put that together a long time ago. So put that up in place of Lynn Shadnoy. For now, we'll get Shadnoy back up there when the time comes. But since we're getting closer to the 20th anniversary of this, went ahead and put Cleaves up there with the actual issue of Spartan Magazine from April of 2000. Of course, that took place first week of April 2000. A few more questions here. Normie, he's housebound in Tucson, Arizona. Hang in there, Normie. Any chance you guys could give us a VCast or a podcast on the 2020 class? Some of that got lost in the D'Antonio resignation and the health scare. So, talking about the 2020 recruiting class, possibility. We talked about that with Robinson a little bit, Corey Robinson, around the December signing day. And, of course, the December signing day was the signing day, and they only added, 2 more players after that? So, not a lot changed after that signing day, but there's other podcasts we can do in the meantime that I've got planned. The current recruiting landscape with Corey Robinson and some other things. That might be something we look at in terms of how some of them might fit into the depth chart coming up. Good idea. Thanks, Normie from Tucson. Alex from Los Angeles says, chances on Edwards now that Ohio State seems to have filled up. That's one of those guys that that Michigan State might not have had much of a chance with. Before the coaching change. But now, chances, I'm not going to say more than 50%, but with Ohio State filling up and Michigan is still in there with him also. Talking about Donovan Edwards, the running back from West Bloomfield. Kind of a national top 50 type of guy. I'm not sure. He's a big timer. That would be a big statement, though, wouldn't it? I'll ask Robinson a little bit more about that. And that's the type of thing that I have to go to the t-shirt camps in the spring to try to look around there a little bit, gather more information. I know that Bellamy was looking forward to talking to Tucker, and it took a while until he finally did talk to Tucker, but then he did, and it went pretty well. I'm not going to put it over 50% right now, but that would be an interesting one, wouldn't it? So chances, I don't know. I'm going to put 33% right now, but those things can change, and that's one area where I'm really going to miss the spring camps because you can go and just kind of observe things, talk to them a little bit, but observe their people, and you can get a look that way. But I don't know. I mean, Michigan State with Tucker and these guys going to be aggressive, more new age with some of this stuff. I'm not counting them out. I'll say that. Hayden Roberts, who's been a subscriber since February. He joined February 5th. Hayden Roberts. Welcome in, Hayden Roberts from Lake Odessa, Michigan. He says, do you think Mel Tucker will be getting more five-star players compared to D'Antonio? Also, what are the chances for Donovan Edwards? Another question about Donovan Edwards. 5 stars. So, 5-star recruits. Donovan Edwards is not a 5-star. He's a 4-star. When you look at the number of 5-star recruits with Rivals.com, there's only about 30 of them a year in the entire country. And 28 of them are from outside of the Big Ten radius. So the chances of going, most 5-stars are going to be out there in Georgia, Florida, Texas, California, once in a while New Jersey. I mean, there might only be 4 or 5 5-stars a year that sign in the entire Big Ten, and Ohio State usually gets all of them. There might be one that goes to Michigan. So will he get more than D'Antonio? D'Antonio didn't get 1 5-star in 13 years. Will Golston was not a 5-star. I'm trying to think, was anybody a 5-star? I mean, T.J. Duckett was a 5-star. Charles Rogers was a 5-star. Those were Nick Saban, Bobby Williams recruits. Have they had a 5-star since then? My point is, so Hayden Vischer asks about Malik McDowell. Malik McDowell was not a Rivals 5-star. So McDowell might have been one in some services. I know that a lot of people will say that there was a negative Michigan State bump on that. Yeah, Malik McDowell was a Rivals 5-star. I stand corrected, number 26 in the country. So McDowell was one. So will Tucker get more than one during his time at Michigan State? I'm going to say yes. Might be that rare State of Michigan guy that's a 5-star that he makes a run at. Can he go to Ohio and get a 5-star guy? Boy, I don't know. But in terms of 5-star recruits in the state of Michigan, there might be one a year. So can they get that guy? I suppose it's possible. But next time you get a chance, look at the Rivals.com top 250 and look to see where those guys are from. And that's the first obstacle. BB Slim from Ormond Beach, Florida. Been a subscriber since September 2016. Thank you, BB Slim. Regarding basketball recruiting, you had posted that there was some chatter about Charles Bediako reclassifying and that Michigan State was working hard with him. Have you heard any more chatter about Bediako reclassifying? No, not since 2 weeks ago when there was some talk about that. He's a 6'10" kid from Canada playing at a prep school in Ohio. BB Slim says Michigan State would have room for both Bediako and Mane if Tillman goes pro. Both of them are Canadians, he points out. Interesting. What are you hearing about the loaded 2021 class? Do you think we land one or more of Buffkin, Brooks, and Akins? Paul Konadike and I have talked about this, and I think I'd like to see Michigan State land 2 of those guys. Personally, I like, Buffkin and Akins. Akins is just a great vertical athlete, and Buffkin, versatile, strong, skilled, savvy. There's those two. There's the Sohan kid from Fort Wayne, kid from England, plays for Team Poland. Konadike did a story on him this week, so he's out there. And then there's Christie. I mean, Konadike's worried about Michigan State putting so much time and effort into Christie that they end up losing Buffkin or Akins. I can understand that. Michigan State's had that situation before. I think they've got a better chance to get Christie than some of these others that they've gone after. Now, Corey Evans, whose opinion I really respect, for Rivals.com, national writer. Remember, at one point, Corey Evans predicted that Vernon Carey would end up at Michigan State, and he knew more about it than I did. So I just deferred to Corey on that one. I said, if he thinks Carey's going to end up at Michigan State, and Carey took 2 official visits to Michigan State, then okay, I'll go ahead and endorse that prediction. So he ends up at Duke. So does Michigan State think they got a better chance to get Christie than Carey? A year out, I think they do feel that way. Now, coming down the stretch, they thought their chances of getting Carey improved and improved and improved. But as much as they like Christie and Christie likes them and he visited and all those things, I still need to see it to believe it. For Michigan State to go to the Chicagoland area and beat Duke for a recruit like that. Konadike has his reservations, and he talked a little bit of sense into me on that. Not that I've got a say in anything, but Michigan State seems to be committed to go the entire distance with Christie. If that means losing out on Buffkin, and then you end up losing on Christie, then you have to go out and get Gavin Schilling again. Or Marble. They got Marble because they didn't get Carey. They got Schilling because they didn't get Jabari Parker. And I don't know. It's a tight one. Marlowe from Grand Blanc. My man. You know what I'm talking about. How do you see the current recruiting situation affecting our new staff? Will the lack of contact help us or hurt us? Will getting back to business as usual help us the most? I'm not sure what he means about getting back to business as usual. Will the lack of contact help or hurt? I think it's got to hurt right now. I think when he was hired, Tucker and his new staff, they really wanted to get going. I think they would have liked to have just gotten visits after visits after visits coming in during spring practice. So I think the current recruiting situation hurts Michigan State. I think Michigan State had a chance to go out and make a splash before one game was played. Next fall, let's face it, Michigan State can have a really hard time winning 7 games, in my opinion. So your ability to get some initial recruiting going right now when you're 0-0 and the unknown is undefeated, and you're literally undefeated, the initial spring, the initial June camps, the initial summer official visits, a lot of times, it's that second-year bump. They didn't get a first-year bump. That would essentially be their first-year bump for recruiting. I think this hurts Michigan State recruiting-wise. With the hiring and the energy and the enthusiasm, Michigan State needed to have a chance to follow up on that. So I think the current situation hurts Michigan State in recruiting more than other teams in the Big Ten. That completes the questions for the mailbag. Got a few more here, and then we'll wrap it up. Let me see if I find my place. Brian Bemis says, Comp, do you know if the playbooks have been given out to the players as of yet? Or is it a wait and see with the coordinators and with what the coordinators are looking for on film of the returning players? No, their playbooks are out. I don't know if the entire playbook is out, but they've gone over concepts. They were introduced to the people, to the players, and they continue to introduce those concepts and techniques and X's and O's things via Zoom, via video conferencing. they'll have video conferencing with individual players. Then sometimes they will have video conferencing with an entire position group. And at least one time already, they've done a video conference with the entire defense, 56 players. So, yeah, they're talking scheme, they're talking film, how it's done right, how it's done correctly. I don't know if they've gone as far as to look at film from last year, Michigan State, and say, this is what you did, and we will want you to do this as well. But when you talk about Burton, Tressel, and Harlan Barnett, they already speak the Michigan State language. They already know the players and what they're capable of. They can say something like, hey, we're going to be doing this just like we did last year, or we're going to do this like last year but a little bit differently. I anticipate those will be some of the quotes coming from people like Mike Tressel in the weeks to come. So I don't know if the whole playbook is out, but they are talking schemes. That is being introduced. They are not waiting to see what the players can do on film or on the field. They know the base foundational things they want to do. Now, as they get guys on the field and test them in some ways, they might discover they can do more of this and amplify something. Or they might think, well, we thought we could do this, but we really can't with that guy. Then some things can change. But the foundational things are in place. Kapilovic with the offensive line coach. You watch Colorado play offensive line. They do zone, they do counter, they pull. A lot of those things are universal. They'll be doing a lot of those things again. So they just need to get the verbiage down and get the players to understand what the terminology is with these guys. Johnson says he's also a big stickler in terms of helping everyone know the why, the big picture why on a concept. So that's going to take some time too. Spartan89 says it was nice to hear from the coaches this week. I agree with you on that. Spartans Forever says, Comp, what did you think of the Twitter Q&A? I thought it was amazing. Coach Tuck has a great personality. I've not seen it. I went looking for it, and I couldn't quite find it. I'm still looking to see if I can find that. That's on my to-do list. I'm glad you liked it. It certainly is different and refreshing, isn't it? Spartan89 Hicks says 5 to 10 offers seem to be going out every day. That's what it seems like. They're busy, and, quite frankly, they're putting in long days right now. You know how it is. If you're locked in, bunkered in, all you can do is work. Some of these guys are separated from their family a little bit. I don't know if they all are. Actually, they may have all gone back. But it gives them more time to look at film and to send out recruiting feelers. So, Spartans Forever. Talking to the mic, Jim. Por favor. I don't speak Spanish, but thank you. This thing kind of gets... I thought it was okay like that, but maybe not. Detroit Spartan says, I think JJ will love Thorne. Talking about Jay Johnson, the offensive coordinator. And is this okay right here? Or you don't like it when I get over here? Is that what you're talking about? Is it okay right here? He said, Detroit Spartan says, I think JJ will love Thorne and like a lot of Theo's tools. Rocky, not so much. So there's a prediction from Detroit Spartan. Thank you, Detroit Spartan, for the mic is fine check there. Spartan89 says he seemed to be extremely excited about Day. I kind of thought that he seemed a little bit more excited about Peyton Thorne. And if you listen to the audio, I don't remember if he was asked about Peyton Thorne, but I think he was asked about Thorne, and he had some really interesting comments about Thorne. And then I asked about Theo Day. I said, out of fairness, what do you think about Theo Day? And he mentioned some things about Day too. And I agree with what he says about Day being sneaky athletic. When you look at him, he looks like a big, square-bodied quarterback. You wouldn't expect him to be that athletic, but he can run. Like Connor Cook had good straight-line speed. Connor Cook did not have great initial acceleration. Connor Cook could run a 40-yard dash better than Brian Lewerke, but Lewerke could run a 10-yard dash better. Lewerke could get up to speed right now, and that's more important when you're trying to get to daylight. Theo Day is like a Connor Cook type of guy. I think he runs well, and I saw Theo Day play some safety in high school. He's like he said, he's sneaky athletic that way, which all coordinators like. But Spartan89 Hicks says he seemed to be extremely excited about Day. My read was he seemed to say a little bit more about Peyton Thorne. Just my read. Spartans Forever says, 14 days with 2 teenagers? How are you guys getting food and groceries? Well, we stocked up a little bit a couple weeks ago. We packed the freezer. I would have preferred to have been more packed, but I would like to only go out for groceries once a month if possible. That's just me. So, I mean, they're eating, but I've been rationing down a little bit. I eat 3 eggs every morning, right? Usually I take just egg whites. It's a long story. But I've rationed it down to 2 so I don't go through the eggs as quickly and with the yolks in. Okay? I usually have 2 sandwiches with tomato soup for lunch. This is more information than you need, right? I've rationed back to 1 sandwich for lunch. Less bread. Trying to get to that once a month grocery store thing. Too much information. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy. I don't know. Let's see. Hayden Fisher, late to the party. How's everybody doing? Great to have you, Hayden, but you do get a demerit for being tardy. Spartans Forever. Good, Hayden. How you doing? Hayden Fisher doing good. Cold Miller Lite in hand. Miller Lite. Miller Lite. Good for you. Tastes great and it's less filling. Going old school. Not a beer snob. I can appreciate that. We're about ready to wrap up here. Lawrence Thomas was a high 4-star. You're right. Golston was a Rivals 5-star. Was Golston let me look that one up. Let me look up Will Golston. Take a look. I think you're right. Let's take a look. Coming up. You're right. He was a 5-star, ranked number 21 in the country. Detroit Spartan is right. So Michigan State, D'Antonio had 2 5-stars, Malik McDowell and Will Golston. I stand corrected. But my point remains that there are very few of them in the Big Ten region. The only chance to get a 5-star really is a Michigander, and there might be 1 Michigander a year that is a 5-star. Some years there are 0. Detroit Spartan with another post says, because Christie is the type of player that has torched us over the years at Duke. Right? John Shire type. Michigan State recruited Shire. Spartans Forever. I saw a Shire player. Izzo was there too. In Chicago. Saw him play. And Shire was excellent. And he won a national championship at Duke. Spartans Forever. 2014 Virginia game, East Regional semifinal versus Virginia on Big Ten Network right now. Dawson was a monster. True, true, and true. Hayden Fisher says Christie's family background compared to others in the past has me growing confident that Michigan State lands him. You're right. Family background is a little different than some others. And his son plays AAU basketball with Doug Wojcik's son. So Michigan State's, they've got a way to keep their ear to the ground on that one. Plus, Michigan State's coaches really like that Christie's parents are very sane, so to speak. But, Shires were sane also. Detroit Spartan. All right. Brian Bemis says, thanks for getting to my question. Greatly appreciate what you do. Paul and Corey will greatly appreciate what you, Paul, and Corey all do for us diehards. Thank you, Brian Bemis. Spartans Forever with another one. If you're late, don't forget to hit the thumbs up or the like button. Thank you, Spartans Forever. We need thumbs up. Get those up there and like the site. Thank you. Hayden Fisher. You have to go to his Twitter profile and go through his replies to see his answer to each question. Talking about the question and answer with Tucker. I tried that, and I couldn't get it to work for some reason. I don't know what was going on. Hayden Fisher, do you think Coach Tucker gives coaches a quota for offers to go out each day? Sometimes it seems like that. No, there's no quota. They've got a specific body type and athleticism that they are looking for. And that comes straight from the Nick Saban thought. What book was it? The Nick Saban book? Right here. Phil Savage wrote it. 4th and Goal every day. It's an inside look at the Nick Saban program. Very interesting. And they get into the Saban recruiting mindset. And it's nothing revolutionary. I mean, he wants big, strong, fast guys. Everybody wants big, strong, fast guys, right? But there's a certain frame and explosiveness and body type that they're looking for. And I guarantee that these offers that Tucker's sending out, they meet that criteria. Maybe not the Alabama criteria, or maybe they do. I don't know. Now, Alabama used to blanket offer. Remember that? That offer everybody, and their offers is like an offer. An offer was basically an invitation to attend camp. How many of these offers are committable offers? I don't know. We've not followed it long enough to see how that goes with them. All right, Detroit Spartan says, I love comps, food, drink routines, and corks. Yeah, we got some corks. How do you know about the corks? I used to be a wine enthusiast to an extent. We've got a lot of corks. Maybe I'll have a glass of wine tonight. I'm not sure. I stay away from it a little bit because it makes me a little tired these days. You know what I'm saying? I always have like a lot of work to do, like the next day. But I like doing work. It's good. But maybe a little red tonight. What do you think? Hayden D. Roberts. We're almost done here. We appreciate everybody chiming in. We got 2 more to go. Hayden Roberts says, do you think Mel will keep big time games close? Appreciate everything. Go Green. The big time games, the Michigan game and so forth. I don't know. They're behind the 8 ball this year. The schedule's tough. Losing out in spring practice hurts Michigan State more than any team in the Big Ten. Rutgers also. For obvious reasons, when you have a new coach, new system, it's going to hurt. So keeping the big games close. Colorado kept things close this year, right? Let me see. I got a power mode thing there a little bit. Yeah, we don't know what we're going to see at quarterback. But yeah, I think they're going to. I would anticipate them keeping the big games close. Penn State, maybe not Ohio State. Could end up like last year. But good question. I don't have a good answer for that one. Do you think all these scholarship offers will get us in an SEC type oversigning situation where we may have to cut kids? It's a good question, and I wouldn't rule it out. Oh, quirks? Did he mean quirks? I do have some quirks, that's for sure. Spartan forever. Thanks, Jim. Have a great weekend and hope you and your family stay safe. Yours too. And I think that's going to wrap it up. We've exhausted all the questions and did it in under 100 minutes. That's a new indoor record for the SpartanMag live session. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll be doing it again next week, and I'm hoping we'll have some new bells and whistles for this thing. I'm working on some things to try to get that going. Looking forward to the 20th anniversary of Cleves in the national championship, and hope everybody is safe. Hope your families are tight and getting closer. It's kind of the situation here a little bit. I'm not driving kids to practice and this practice and coming back that way. And, we've been eating together, taking walks together. Arguing has been at a minimum. It's like 1977. The whole family's sitting around watching TV. But I've noticed there's not much on TV. We don't have Netflix. Maybe I should. We don't have HBO. Maybe I should have that. But if you're a sports guy like I am and like a lot of you are, boy, it is different, isn't it? And I had my son watching the Ken Burns baseball series a little bit, and he got a kick out of it a little bit, but he didn't want to sit down and watch much more of it. We watched the Lakers Celtics documentary on ESPN a little bit. The wife's a little bit interested in this OJ thing that's out, so we're taking a look at some of those things on the DVR. Michigan Out of Doors is always great, but there's not a lot on TV, is there? And I'm thinking to myself, if I think there's nothing on TV and I'm getting a little antsy trying to find things, that I'm figuring a lot of you guys might be the same way, and some of you guys might want to talk some Michigan State sports. So that's what we're doing, and we had fun doing that. So anyway, we'll check it out next week. We'll try to have another one of these. In the meantime, check us out over at SpartanMag.com, the Underground Bunker message board, which is the church of what's happening now in Michigan State sports. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Go check out SpartanMag.com in the meantime. Jim Comparoni, SpartanMag.com, saying everybody be safe. Hope to see you soon, and take care.